Another week, another day. And we are now on with Dave. Dave has been enlightening us, sharing some great information about our history, our constitution, and what has been going on in the past and how it's going to benefit our future. In each show, what I want people to do is listen to it, and then, you'll see some links, you'll see some information, and then go and do your own research. Sort of create that enthusiasm within yourself and follow through and see what comes up. So this week, we're going to just talk about the Constitution, women within our home as well, when laws are being passed or rules are being enforced on us. So, Dave, how are you today?
I'm very well, Joe, and hello to all your listeners again. Yeah. It's okay, right? Because we're going to learn about the fact that things aren't always as they appear in this session, I think. So, sharing some information.
We were having a conversation offline, and you said to me, look, there's some stuff that's coming up, which sounds like it's a great idea, to do with women in the home. But there is an undercurrent which could affect people that they don't realise. And there's been citizen study groups come up. There could be a referendum for changing on this. You said to me, we need to get this across the line now rather than later.
Okay, so thank you. So here's the key thing. Let's just take the Blue Book 1937 Constitution as it stands. Most people would assume that it's a very important document, and most people would also assume that it protects your rights. It really doesn't as such. It enumerates some of your key rights that are there. They're called fundamental rights in the document, so there's one of the hints. What most people don't realise is that every time that there's a referendum put to the people in that document, okay, so that whenever there's a modification to that book, which is only enacted by plebiscite, so it wasn't really a referendum. Key point here is that when a proposal is put forward to change the wording in that document, the people have not been given the true words of that constitution. Okay, I'm going to use the word constitution here for a second. So what does David actually mean by this? There's an original text draft which is no longer available, okay, because English and Irish are our national languages in this country, okay? But in the case of a divergence between English and Irish in the Constitution, here's the kicker. The Irish version reigns supreme. I don't know about you, Joe, but my Irish isn't great. How's your Irish?
Conas atá tú.
All the Callaghan, Bugatti and letters. That's about it. Now, here's the thing. You don't need to have great Irish, folks, because there was actually a document released by the government, and that is a study of the Irish text. So this was released by the government stationery office many moons ago, and this is a study of the Irish text. Now, why is this important? Because, okay, and I'm reading from a document here, I'm actually reading from the study of the Irish text here. It's a 764-page document, Joe, okay? It's bigger than the old telephone books, if you remember those. Now, what this does is it gives you the difference in English, okay, between the English version, the 37 text that you know, the Blue Book, and also the original literal Irish translated by a Gaelic scholar. Now, this is very important here because there's very big divergences between the provisions of those constitutions in law. So this is a government publication showing you that there's a massive difference between the Blue Book you've been given, which actually even says in that document that it's modernized, standardized English. So there's a hint, that's in the Blue Book, where the 1937 literal text translation is superior in law and it's recognized by the courts. But here's the thing, you need to know it exists. The people don't know this exists. So every time the referendum commission asks you to make a determination on it, they are giving you the watered down version. So it's a little bit disingenuous, Joe. It's a little bit disingenuous. So just park it there for a second.
It's interesting because if you find something online or the mainstream media will mention something about a referendum or a vote that's going on, you always just get the summary of what it is. And I don't think people realize as well that there's stuff in there which is put in which will never be discussed publicly, but when the vote is passed, this comes into law. It's a bit of cloak and dagger. And I think people really need to sort of go, when they hear something, put the trust in their own faith in and find their own study group to go and look at it. Because, attention is in the detail. And sometimes if it's overlooked, can have great influence on future generations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this isn't by chance that this stuff has been obfuscated, okay? It isn't by chance. So ask yourself, is the Constitution really the issue here when we're looking at revisions to the Constitution? Or is it just the fact that the government actually isn't holding up the provisions as they have been empowered to do so? I'll be talking a little bit today about citizen-led initiatives, okay, with citizens' assemblies. But I really want to kind of just claw back a little bit to the 37 original text draft because it's so important. And I'm just going to read this here, if I can, for a second, Joe, okay? And this is from the professor who did the translation. In the commentary on the Constitution which follows, we shall see that while many of the provisions of the 1937 Constitution are identical to the provisions of the 1922 Constitution, the Irish text of which is an acknowledged direct translation of the English. And then it says the corresponding Irish text in the 37 Constitution differs greatly, and one must assume deliberately from that of the 22 Constitution. Again, this being in very few instances due to developments in the Irish language between 1922 and 1937. So this is the individual who did the translation, who was a Gaelic scholar, is saying that there's deliberate modifications to the Constitution, okay? Just be mindful about this. It's not me saying it. You can see this yourself in black and white. I just want people to be mindful about this as we go through, that there's fudges in the language and it doesn't suit the people, okay? And we're going to give some very specific examples.
What we're saying is, who was the professor that wrote this?
Yes, that's Professor Micheál Ó Corúil.
Okay, so he was stating that the translation from Irish to English was missing or was altered in a certain way.
In a nutshell, there's a bit of skullduggery that's gone on with our Constitution since the foundation of the state. Even the 1937 Constitution that most people might think is the be-all and end-all, that has been, parts of it have been obfuscated. People haven't been given the correct information to make a determination on. Okay? That's really the key thing. Go into this with all your eyes open and all your senses open, and we'll have an interesting conversation about all this material. It's really the best thing I can say, Joe.
I think we are.
Yeah.
What do you want to highlight today?
Yeah, okay. So spoke about the preamble of the 37 Constitution previously, okay? I want to speak to people about the original text draft today. And I really want to drive this point home in relation to the Citizens' Assembly. The Citizens' Assembly that was set up to apparently modernize the Constitution. Grouping, okay, of 99 people allegedly taken at random throughout the state. And they've been given a remit, okay, to look at certain aspects of the Irish Constitution to modify it. Now, that in and of itself mightn't be too nefarious if these people actually had their own ideas. But what's actually happened is this grouping of 99 people have been lectured to, they've been given presentations on, and advice about the Constitution. Some of the advice they've been given is actually incorrect. So you have a body that's been set up by the government, essentially choosing 99 citizens who probably don't have much interest in the Constitution in the first place, asked to give their opinions on presentations that's been given to them, and then they come back and they feed information to the government on where the constitution should be changed. That's a subversion of democracy. Let's just call it what it is here. That's the government saying, we're going to give you talking points. What do you think of the talking points? Reflect them back to us, please. And then we're going to say, this is the Citizens' Assembly coming together to give us a direction. That isn't how a functioning democracy works. That's wrong. At any fundamental level, that's wrong, because, that isn't a Citizens' Assembly in any shape or form. That's a collective of 99 people. Call it what it is.
As far back as you want to go, these things are created, and the people that are involved in it from a higher level, it's about pushing something through, which is power, control. The only way something like that can change is when people ask those questions and look into great detail about what is. You're saying this is a red flag that people need to be aware of.
Absolutely. And most people would not even be aware of the makeup or, the procedural implications of this. They kind of go, oh, yeah, that seems like a good idea. But they don't really understand what's going on here behind the scenes. As you rightly said, Joe, the word citizen is something to be mindful of, okay? Because you've got, even that word citizen versus the state. The citizen has obligations towards the state in turn for the protection of the state. Okay? Most people mightn't think that's the bad issue. But remember, folks, we don't have a king, queen, and emperor in this country. So the people are sovereign. So if you're petitioning the state for a right, then you don't even know you have that right in the first place.
True.
Okay? I'll be very careful as we're speaking about this, that the people are aware of their real authority as protected under the 1937 Constitution, Citizens' Assembly aside.
Okay, so tell me if I'm going off track here. The Citizens' Assembly, what are they reviewing now at the moment?
Okay, well, I'd really recommend people have a look at this themselves. Everything from gender equality right through to Article 41 of the Constitution. And the Article 41 of the Constitution is a very important one, Joe. We will get on to that because I really think it's pivotal to what I'm talking about here. Look at everything from what might seem like topic of work and welfare and rights and women in leadership. And nobody's got any issues with any of those general topics, But when you start to get a cohort of 99 people together to change the foundational document of the state, then I think it's more of a roundtable exercise than 99 people. And you'd have to nearly wonder why his number was chosen. Like a 99 where I live is an ice cream, Joe. I don't know about you. It's certainly not a part of a democracy.
Well, what they usually do is when you pick 100 people and ask 100 people, it sort of gives you a gauge of what the mood is of the people. Polls that go out, you could ask 100 people in a poverty area and they give you a different response to asking 100 people in an affluent area. But as we believe, the Citizen Assembly is randomly pick people, so it sort of gives that mix. In a court case where you have your jurors and each side will probably try and influence, is the Citizen Assembly being shown both sides for something, or are they just being influenced in one direction?
You can actually see some talking points of some of the people who've addressed the Citizens' Assembly online, and the information they're being given is not correct. Like some of the people, anybody who's listening here today will be better versed on the Constitution than some of the information that was given to the Citizens' Assembly, because they certainly weren't told about the original text draft. And you can see this yourself online, and we can maybe share this after the fact.
Yeah, we'll put a link into it as well. So Article 41 that's coming up.
Again, and I just really have to drive this home with everybody here as well. You cannot read the legal eagles, the Supreme Court justices, do not read a single article in and of itself. They don't read this in isolation, okay? So that's the first thing to be mindful of, right? So we're all busy. We get this straw poll on when we're going to change the proposed change of the Constitution, but we are not reviewing it in the broader sweeps that the legal eagles and the judges and judiciary will review this, okay? That's the first thing to be mindful of. So you need to look at the whole body of work. And if you don't have a constitution, download it or buy one, folks. Okay. Take an interest in the stuff for yourself. It is important. But I want to kind of Article 41.1, which is about the family. It's a very important article here, Joe, and I'd like to read it out if you don't mind. Okay?
Please do. Please.
Yeah. And I want to show you the difference between the Blue Book version, which is watered down, and the literal English translation. And we're going to map this out with a few, and people can read this. So in the original text draft, you can read both versions side by side. And remember, this is a government document, folks. Okay, it's not an interpretation. This is a published government document that has been used in the courts, if you know it exists. So the English text.
So just to clarify, you're going to read out the English text from the Blue Book, which was 1937 Blue Book.
Correct.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's what you're reading first. Okay.
Absolutely. The state recognizes the family as the natural, primary, and fundamental unit group of society and as a moral institution possessing inalienable and imprescriptible rights, antecedent and superior to all positive law. Can I explain that a little bit in broad sweeps? And you have to remember, folks, if you think this sounds a bit lofty, Susan Denham, right, the Supreme Court Justice and other Supreme Court Justices have actually come out and said that the Constitution has to be comprehended from the lay person's perspective, because it was actually written with us in mind. It's not a legal interpretation. It's not purely a legalistic determination. Susan Denham, the Supreme Court Justice, said this, and other Supreme Court Justices have said this as well. So what this document is doing, okay, the English text is saying the family, as part of nature, essentially natural, primary, and fundamental unit group of society, and as a moral institution, okay, possess inalienable and imprescriptible rights. Now, what that means is your family, my family, every family. Forget government, okay? We are part of a society. So before government came together, we had societies, we had families together. It's the primary and fundamental group of any society. And you have rights. And before we were told what to do, to think, families were moral institutions. We looked after each other, okay? We cared for each other. Our extended family networks were there to support each other. And our rights are inalienable. You cannot give them away. You cannot confer them onto anybody else. They're just there, okay? They're inalienable, and they're imprescriptible. I can't write them down. You can't write them down. This is why I said to you, Joe, earlier on, what are your rights? Where do my rights end and your rights begin? Imprescriptible, okay? So it's like a prescription. You get medicine. Imprescriptible means I can't write it down. Antecedent means in time. Modern precedent, okay, a precedent, they go antecedent, even further back again. So antecedent and superior to all positive law. So that means is your rights, your family's rights, your family's rights, all family rights. Can't be written down, can't be taken away, can't be withdrawn. And not only that, before they even started writing laws down the law books, they were superior to that. And it had a history and chronology before that. And that's there in the Constitution. Now, you might say to me, okay, that's nice to know because it's just sort of explained the English text. Now, remember I said to you, the English text is watered down. Let me put this into in language that I guarantee you'll get straight away. Here we go. This is the literal English translation. This is the Irish version, literally translated into English. And if you can't get any more straightforward than this, then God help you. The state acknowledges that the family is the basic primary group unit for society according to nature, and that it is a moral institution which has inalienable, invincible rights, which are more ancient and higher than any human statute.
That's different.
That is very different, Joe. Now, the one I just read you out, I'm going to reread it because this is the one that's superior in law.
Just before you read it out,
yeah,
that's the original translation from the Irish text into English that is meant to be in the Blue Book of 1937.
The original text draft. So if there's a case of a divergence between Irish and English, The Irish version is supreme in law.
Okay.
And there is a divergence.
I'm just harping on it because, people will kind of stop and go, let me think about that. So we're just emphasizing that because it is important.
It's massively important.
Okay.
It's like the difference between a B grade constitution and an A grade constitution. What one do you want?
I want an Aston Martin.
Yeah. That's allowed.
That's allowed.
Yeah. Now, and of course, the devil is in the detail, right? So the way...
Read it out again.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important. So the state, okay, now here's the difference. So I'm going to maybe map this out a little bit. So in the English version, it's the state recognizes. So Joe, I recognized you. How are you? Okay. But do I acknowledge you as the boss? Maybe not. In the literal English translation, it's the state acknowledges the family is the basic primary group unit of society according to nature. And it's a moral institution which has inalienable, invincible rights, which are more ancient and higher than any human statute. That's dynamite.
Definitely.
But you have to know it exists.
Let's grab a screenshot of that as well, and we'll put this in this video. When you're reading now, people will see it there, and we'll put a link to where they can find that as well.
Just to kind of move on a little bit as well, that that these are all under Article 41 components here, and this is what's under attack. This is the sections that I just mentioned to you a moment ago, and your listeners, that the Citizens' Assembly are looking at. So when the media are giving you your talking points about the Constitution and why it needs to change, remember, they're giving you the watered-down version. So it's one of three options I said to people. The media are either complicit, complacent, or corrupt. Any one of those three are not good places for the media to be because they're not giving the people the information that they require.
Two questions I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
One, what brought Article 41 up for discussion to be changed? And the second one is, what are the implications for when it is changed, and what is it changing to? So there's three questions there.
Okay. What brought Article 41 up? Okay. So basically, Article 41 keeps the state in check, essentially. All right. The courts interpret the family as being the matrimonial family, Joe. Now, that's their limited view, okay? That, you have to be, a family is through wedlock. Now, it doesn't give you any delineation there on if it's your extended family. So, like, you could be a child of a family, Joe, but not married, okay? But because that family is based on the institution of marriage, it's constitutionally protected. Just let that sit with you for a second, all right? So what it does, what that provision does, it actually protect, even though the courts have a limited view of the word family, once a member of your family is married, you're under the protection of that family article, okay? Once you know to invoke it and you don't move off that position. The need to change this, I'm going to say the need to change it is that the state want power. I'm sorry to say it, Joe. Okay, the state want power over people. They want to be able to tell you what your children have to learn in school. This is, you may recall, there was a couple of teachers there recently who wanted to homeschool their own children, and the Department of Education came in and attempted to say, and these are professional teachers, Joe. The Department of Education were trying to come in and get control essentially over the content that professional teachers were teaching their own family. And they dropped in Article 41 into a constitutional challenge to protect their children. So if the state was trying to grab your children, for example, and it was how will I say this, Joe? If it was essentially the state had an issue with perhaps vaccinations, okay, you might have an issue around experimental vaccinations for COVID, perhaps. If you had a concern about that, if you know about Article 41.1, you can invoke it, all right, for the protection of your family. If you have a concern in relation to the content that your children are being taught in school, you can drop in Article 41.1.1. If you have a concern in relation to the dwelling, you can drop in Article 41.1, but it has to pertain to the family. So this is what keeps the state in check. essentially, Joe. Okay, and I'm probably diverging off this, but I'm really
No.
at pains to drive home the importance of this. This is absolutely critical to the backbone of society. It's protected and it's enshrined in the Constitution. So if people don't know about this, then the state becomes a member of the family. You know, it becomes the parent, the guardian.
The state will become a member of the family, the guardian, if this is changed. But the question is, what is it changed to? What is the wording that they want to put in, or what is the document that they want to change it to? Am I explaining myself right,
You are. Okay, so essentially what you're trying to say is, okay, we know what it is. What is it going to be changed to? Let me be as straight up with you as it can be. Whatever it's going to get changed to is not going to be in your interest. So Article 41.1.1 is in their crosshairs. They're not going to come after that straight away. What they are coming after is, under the umbrella of an Article 41 modification, is they're coming under the auspices of saying that we need to modify the women's place in the home provision because it's construed to be sexist or a throwback to a different era, okay, when women were somehow oppressed. But I've tried to map this out for you with the 1916 proclamation, which actually showed that the Irish at the time were way ahead of themselves. I'd like to move on, actually, Joe, and give people an example of how they're being corralled in a certain direction. Maybe explain this to people, please, if I can. And again, these are all under Article 41, folks, okay, and these are sort of known as fundamental rights. Okay, fundamental being basic. So the specific one that we're going to be looking at, there's a few of them, okay, but they're all under attack. And I'd like to read out the English text again. And again, remember, it's meant to be interpreted how the lay person can interpret this. It's not the legal legals, but when you go into court, the legal legals are the ones that interpret it. So this is the English text of Article 41.2.1. So this is in the Blue Book. This is what the Referendum Commission would tell you are voting on. And this is the watered down version. In particular, the state recognizes that by her life within the home, woman gives to the state a support without which the common good cannot be achieved. I'll say it one more time. English text. In particular, the state recognizes that by her life within the home, woman gives to the state a support without which the common good cannot be achieved. Let me just park it there. I could understand why, if you're looking at that, you could have an issue with that. I actually can, right? But remember, that's watered down. It's been badly translated. It's been obfuscated. Can I read out the correct version for you, please, Joe?
Please.
Okay. And remember the difference now between recognizes and acknowledges, right? And all the legal legals don't tell you this. Specifically, the state acknowledges that the woman gives the state, through her life in the family household, assistance, support, without which the welfare of the people could not be achieved. I'm going to read it out again. Specifically, the state acknowledges that the woman gives the state, through her life in the family household, assistance, support, without which the welfare of the people could not be achieved. Now, what's the key differences here? The English text used the words within the home. The original text draft acknowledges through her life in the family household. Okay, so park it for a second and think about this. English text draft is essentially, when you read it, it looks like it's trying to corral the female, the woman, into the home. Okay, the original text draft is not doing that. It's acknowledging that as part of the family household, there's a contribution given there towards society that cannot be given anywhere else. So the onus, if I can just wrap it up here very quickly, the onus is on the state in that particular aspect to protect, okay, to protect and support as necessary people in the home if they so desire to stay there. There's nothing that says anybody has to stay there. I'll just park it there for a sec, Joe, and let you come back because I know it's a lot to unpack.
What I'm picking up from it, the original text, which was originally translated from Irish into English, is acknowledging the contribution that the woman offers in the family home, which is crucial. That is the feminine, natural way helping the family unit. And that's not even in the home. That's part of society as well. That is the balance between feminine and masculine within our society. And the watered down version, which is trying to be introduced, consolidate all that into wording, saying something different to say you're not as valued, but we want you to be valued, so we're going to make these changes. Would it be right there?
Joe, as I read it, okay, as a guy, that gets me heckles up the way it's written in the English language. Okay, it gets me heckles up, so I can understand why women are up in arms about it. Okay, but again, I'm just trying to point out that there's major divergence here, massive. And can I just underpin this, Joe, because this is really important. At the moment, we know, right, that women generally bear off better in the family law courts. Know this, okay? Anecdotally, people know this, all right? Like generally in custody battles, women on a balance of probabilities get more access to their kids, okay?
Correct.
That's because of this provision. So that's an aspect of this provision that if women change this, Joe, they may well end up losing access to their kids, or TUSLA may start coming in. Because remember, we've also allowed them to come in with the 37 constitution modifications as well. So there's a number of unintended consequences here if we change these things.
Okay, so at the moment, if there are people who are not married, the woman can have the right, and we know that men's rights, men out there who haven't seen their children for a very long time because of the wife and protecting her under the Constitution. And that needs to change in itself, because there is an element there that needs to be balanced. But also what you're looking at here is, if this Article 41 is changed, and if there is a dispute, the government, which now is claiming to be part of the family, the state, can then intervene, and they can take the children into state ownership through TUSLA, which goes into a system which can do more damage to the family home than ever before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the people have created this entity.
They've signed over to the state because they're basically saying that the state knows best.
But the state has construed it that they have the authority to do this.
To say that the state knows best in the circumstances here, we're getting involved, and until this is rectified, we're taking control.
Essentially so, right? Because both parents can't seem to get an agreement towards each other, and therefore it's in the best interest of the children that we're going to look after the kids for the time being, because we care.
What advantage do the state have of doing that?
It's a business, Joe. It's a business. I hate to say it, it's a business. There's people who get paid a pretty penny for looking after, children, Joe. There's a lot of people who make a lot of money in the legal realm, Joe.
The worst thing as well, which I'm more shocked about, is TUSLA is self-governing. So they are a law within themselves that no one else can find out or get information. These are the ones that are making decision. And I'm sure there's a money trail. If you look at TUSLA on this, there's a money trail.
There's a number of scandals around TUSLA that I don't even want to get into today, Joe, because I just find it quite disturbing. And
yeah, I know there was a report on them, on the body, but nothing has ever been done for it. But that is another day. That is another day. Yeah.
Yeah, and we are still on Article 41. But again, Joe, that this entity, it's due process, right? So anybody involved with TUSLA has effectively been denied due process, okay? So, just people need to be mindful about this. And this is where a little bit of self-education and doing the research is very important. I do want to read this extension, right? This is Article 41.2.2. And this is another one that's under attack, okay? But remember, a moment ago, I read out, and I'm going to read the literal English translation again because they're all linked, okay? Specifically, the state acknowledges that the woman gives the state through her life in the family household assistance stroke support which without the welfare assistance stroke support without which the welfare of the people could not be achieved. It's acknowledging contribution to society at large. There's Article 42.2. I'm going to actually mix it up here. I'm going to read the literal English translation. So this is a stronger one. For that reason, the state will endeavour to ensure that mothers of a family, because of want, will not have to engage in work and neglect their duties in the household because of that. That, T-H-A-T. It's not saying to you because they want to work or they don't want to work or anything like that. It's literally saying will not have to engage in work. It's not that it can't work or anything like that, but it's actually saying that the state will endeavour to ensure, because of want, they won't have to engage in work and neglect their duties. All right. Now, that's cool if they want to go out and work. I get that, right? Okay, everybody should want to have a career and aspirations, but it's a constitutionally protected position, and just because it's there, women are sovereign. Okay, they can choose to acknowledge that or cast it aside and go out and work the workforce. That's their prerogative. They're absolutely right. But in this instance, perhaps where, as I said to you last week, Joe, I might have been in a car crash and I might not be able to work anymore, or might not be around anymore. Isn't it nice to know that my partner has been protected under the Constitution?
We have the issue where the rights of the wife and the child, unmarried mothers getting all these homes and, bleeding the state dry. Now, I believe that anyone that has a child should be entitled to a home under the Constitution. And we know that there's a lot of people, unfortunately, living in hotels, rooms with children with no place to go because of the way the state is screwed up. Are people being influenced out of anger or frustration to change this without actually sitting down and really getting down into the original text and how it is already protecting us more so than this alteration that they want to put in, which will actually, it will be a step backwards?
My comment, just to leave hanging with you here, Joe, okay, is if the Constitution is really important, which I believe it is, all right, then the state's obligation is to make sure the citizens and the legislature are fully aware of the nuances of that Constitution, okay? It's a hallmark of a functioning society. Not this cloak and dagger stuff about giving you a watered-down version. If you can't trust them to give you the document that holds them in check, what else?
Text, yeah.
What else are they doing to confuse you?
Yeah, if they're not sharing the original translation from Irish into English, something smells off. Something smells off, definitely.
Something is fundamentally wrong. There's people in the legal courts, okay, in the legal system who know this, Joe, right? And they're not advising their clients on this because they don't want the judge getting angry. This is what they're actually saying. The judge will get angry if you drop that into court. Like, what kind of country is this, Joe, where you're told not to use the real Constitution when you go into court? What is going on?
Okay, so people are listening to this. What we want you to do is we're going to put stuff up here. Created a study group as well where people can go in, ask questions and check. That's coming up, and there'll be a link somewhere where this video is for people to look on it, because we want people to start talking and people educating themselves on it. So what Dave is doing and myself are doing are just throwing in these red flags, these drops of information. What's the next step? What do we do as sovereign human beings of Ireland do about this, Dave?
Okay, Joe. So in relation to your query about where can we go and actions that people can take from this point, if you remember, the idea of a delegated letter of authority is very important. So, I would be asking about where's the delegated letter of authority to the Citizens' Assembly? Okay, who issued that delegated letter of authority? Because I certainly didn't. I don't know about you, Joe. I don't think you did either. I don't think any of your listeners did either. I certainly don't think we were consulted on the matter. Okay, that's the first thing. I would demand that the original text draft is reinstated and made available from the government stationery office, because it is unavailable from the government stationery office. Think about how farcical a situation that is. A government publication, which is the true version of your constitution, is now out of print. I would encourage everybody listening to this to get a PDF copy at the very least, and preferably a physical copy of the Blue Book 1937 Constitution.
Can we provide the PDF?
We can. We absolutely can, but nothing beats the hard copy, Joe. You know,
I understand that, but it's a start anyway. So.
Absolutely. And specifically understand that these are all tools, intellectual treasure chests, if I can use that term, right? Your treasure chest. And these are all gifts that have been left to you. So the 1919 Constitution is the best one of all, but I would ask people to ask for a delegated letter of authority to the Citizens' Assembly. Where is their license to operate in the Sovereign Republic of Ireland? That's another great question to ask, because I certainly didn't give them a license in this regard. I'd love to see the minutes of their meetings. You know, who's brought together the team to lecture 99 people? Because this is an usurpation of a constitution. Could you imagine any other country, Joe, that you said to somebody, well, we got 99 people together and want to change your Declaration of Independence? Could you imagine saying that to the Americans?
Is it not a case then, this change, but then it'll be put to a referendum for people to vote either for the change or not?
Again, Joe, you're going to be given the watered down wording.
Yeah.
So the Citizens' Assembly, even if you say this is done in good faith, the Citizens' Assembly have not been given the correct wording to make a determination on. So you've got the blind leading the blind, being led by false prophets, essentially, because the people who are given the Citizens' Assembly their sort of intro to the articles for discussion are well versed, but they're not actually giving the people the original text draft wording, right? And if you do a little bit of sleuthing around these people, you will actually see that they have an agenda. They actually do have an agenda, and it's quite a public position as well. But the optics of it, when they're speaking about it, is that we're here just to have a discussion, right? So that's disingenuous. And fundamentally, it's quite dangerous.
Yeah, this could be something that could change next year. Well, I'd say COVID will stop it. Will stop something like this, you know, as a referendum, probably be next year. But it's something that I think there's momentum there for us to question and look at and ask. So it is important. There is a bit of a shock there. Some people might be listening and says, oh, women's rights, and, you know, we're fighting this, and, you know, two guys talking about this, and it's wrong, but it's not. This is really about exploring this to look at it more in a way that protects the woman and all women within the dwelling and within Ireland as well. So it's very important that we're doing this so women can really look at it and go, hang on, we want the best rights for ourselves.
Absolutely. I think any man out there is worth his salt, right? Defend his partner to the absolute hilt, sacrifice their own life, and infinitely acknowledge that the female is far more adept and far more skilled inherently, okay, are contributing towards the life of the son. They're just more intuitive, Joe. You know, like blokes can be a disaster, and put myself in this area here as well, right? So, you know, I think that's what the provision was actually just trying to say. Look, let's just acknowledge that there are differences, and let's cherish those differences. And even if you think this is just two blokes, you know, harping on about something, why don't they just put in the provision adding men into the Constitution as well in that regard, right? So rather than changing it and saying it's sexist, just put the words in on men as well, where it mentions women, okay? And then everybody's got the same rights. So what's the issue then?
That's good. Good point. What would be a call of action for people?
To reinstate, to demand that the 1937 original text draft is updated and made available to any family and any individual who requires it. At the moment, people don't even know it exists.
Okay. And who was that demand to?
Michael Collins, CEO of the bar in Ireland. And we'll be getting some registered letters on that issue, I think, Joe, quite soon. I think it's very important.
Okay, so you'll have one of them. You'll have that provided as well.
Yes, this is crucial. Absolutely crucial.
Okay. Okay, so anything else to add on that? Anything else to add? There's a lot of information to take in there at the moment. So is there anything else that we've missed or you want to cover here?
I suppose the Constitution, it was a document of its time. The principles of the Constitution arose from the 1916 and the 1919 Constitution. It's very important people are aware of it, that they can use it, but it's equally important to realise that the 37 Constitution, the Irish language version, is an exceptional document. It's exceptional, okay? But, so the 1937 document, if implemented correctly, the Blue Book Constitution is very good. The original text draft is an incredible document for its protections around the family, but the 1919 Constitution supersedes it all. And if people just even get one of those constitutions into their hand, they're infinitely more empowered than currently the system wants them to be. So anybody who thinks they're powerless, get a constitution today, review it, and start holding your politicians to account, because it limits them, not you.
Again, I'll say to everyone, read the proclamation, because that is where it all stands. Read that and understand it. You could say hidden texts in there that protect you as a sovereign person in Ireland. And I think that's very, very crucial. Again, educate yourself, because the state is there to help us and protect us, not to imprison us. The state is there because they work for us. And people might go, oh, work for us. Yes, for all our natural resources and all the stuff that we provide and all the stuff that has been sold off or used on a corporate level is ours. And they work for us. And it's not being, oh, they work for us to do my job. No, it's about just making people accountable because of in the positions that they are in to protect you and me or the sovereign people of Ireland. And I will leave it there. And it's a lot of information to take in. And I want to try and keep this short as well, because people can really then look at the links and everything as well. So I say to people, don't be worried or don't feel anxiety or don't get stressed about this. Understand that if you listen to this, you have the knowledge. And by having the knowledge gives you the power. And you alone can make the changes. You can make the changes on it.
Fantastic. I think so, Joe. One last point, if I can. Sorry. Our Garda Síochána have taken an oath to uphold that constitution, as do the Defence Forces. So this is an important living document, but it's up to the people to make sure it stays alive. I think it's a good way to finish it up. Thanks, Joe.
And that's it, folks. And next week we'll be delving into more information. We have a list, believe me, we have a list to go through, a lot of stuff, which will, as I say, this is history. This is really about history. It's about education. It's about informing yourself. And it's about knowing your rights. You're a sovereign human being under God. Until next week.